Excuse me, can I please talk to you for a minute?
Sure. You know, you look kind of familiar.
Yeah, you do too. I just wanted to know, do you know a podcast named The Podcast Is Mine?
Oh, I know that podcast.
I just wanted to let you know that it's mine.
No, it's mine. Hello, and welcome to The Podcast Is Mine. I'm Bhushan Kumar.
And I'm Sunny Grohl.
Hey, Sunny, what's happening?
Good, I'm so glad to be recording this episode.
I know, we've got such a great episode. So, we're just going to go straight to The Secret Diary of a Zone 1 Ho.
Oh my goodness, so shall we get it out? It's digital again, isn't it?
It is, and I'm going to sanitize my hands, and then I'm going to open a new tab. Ooh. And so today, our entry is all about reboots.
Oh my gosh, excitement.
I know, so all these shows that we know and loved from our formative years, shall we call them?
A few weeks ago,
exactly. We're forever 21, if anyone's in any doubt. Exactly. I'm still growing, to be honest with you. The baby fat's going to go at some point, I'm telling you. But loads of our favourite shows are actually doing reboots and coming back. Wow. So, for example, Friends is going to have a reunion show.
Is it just one episode for that?
I think it is, but I think it might be with a view to kind of if it does well, test the water.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And then obviously Sex and the City is coming back.
I'm so excited for this.
And that's going to be called Just Like That.
Oh, it's not called Sex and the City?
No. So Carrie Bradshaw, one of the key sentences that she always wrote was and just like that, blah, 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 blah. So they're actually calling the show Just Like That. And of course, the big thing about that reboot is we know what it is. Exactly.
Indeed.
So no Samantha, possibly no Big.
What?
Yeah.
Is he dead?
We don't know. They've not revealed any details.
In real life he's alive, isn't
he? No, he's alive in real life. Yeah. But apparently Aidan has signed, John Corbett has signed on.
Well,
no, Carrie treated Aidan back. We are going to discuss this in length at some point.
What? We're going to definitely dissect it.
We are going to go into that world. And then Gossip Girl, which is really, really exciting.
XOXO. You told me about that.
Well, the thing is, I always feel Gossip Girl never got its due because it was ahead of its time. It predicted what our lives would be like. And yes, they had the Motorola flip-up phones and these awful, god-awful phones they were taking pictures on and reporting into Gossip Girl. But it was very true, that whole idea that social media would become conflated with social status.
Okay.
And Netflix took the whole series off because Warner Brothers asked for it back ahead of the reboot. So before Christmas, I had to binge it in literally 4 weeks. I was literally watching Gossip. Everything I was doing was Gossip Girl, the toilet paper run out. And I'd just be uh-oh, spotted. Who's going to have to use their lota to wash their ass? Everything in my mind was narrated by Gossip Girl. But the new reboot is looking so exciting because it's in the same universe.
Okay.
But it's of this time, so they've got a much more diverse cast to start with, so it's not all rich white people having fun. And the fashion from it is looking really good.
Oh my goodness. Of course. You know what I'm going to say now?
Go on.
I've never seen it.
Well, do you know, but that's true, that because it kind of went under the radar, and I think especially in the UK where ITV2, where all the best shows are buried.
Oh my god, like The Mummy.
Exactly. You see The Mummy Returns and Liar Liar, but Gossip Girl gets no prominence, honestly. But I think in the UK it kind of got a bad rap. It didn't really get the attention it deserved, and then so some people knew of it and some people didn't.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a real shame because it's such a great show, and the reboot, they really look like they've done, and it's going to be on HBO Max as well.
Oh, so it's an actual HBO show.
Yeah, so HBO have got involvement in it, and it's apparently going to be a lot darker and edgier, and even just through the social media already, it's looking really exciting. So I think that's a really good example of a reboot that looks like it's going to work really well. And the Sex and the City, Just Like That, I am excited to see that as well.
I really want to see. I've missed that show so much, but when I do kind of catch one of the older seasons, I look at it and I'm like, oh my god, this is so dated. It's so cringy, some of it. But then the later seasons, it starts to feel like, okay, you can get into it, and I just can't see a new audience really being interested in going back that far, not on a mass scale. So it's good that they're starting the idea of maybe rebooting it. I wonder if this idea of calling it Just Like That is that to do with the shake-up of the cast as well? Is it just they want to kind of almost say this isn't the old show continued on because there are key central characters missing now?
Yeah, I think that might be the case because it does seem like they are taking it in a new direction. They've said that time moves on. For example, Samantha's non-appearance in the show is going to be explained as just friendships moving on and people moving on as well. Not that Sarah Jessica Parker was a massive bitch to her, because that's a totally different.
You know what is it? Because I remember when she was on Andy's Watch What Happens Live, we've all seen that interview, haven't we? And she's just acting her way through it. She's I have no idea what she was so blindsided by that Piers Morgan interview that
oh my god, yeah
did. And I was just like, I don't know who to believe, because it's almost like, we've all had that situation when I don't know, you work with someone who's almost like a frenemy kind of situation where you're like, look, I spend a lot of time with you, but actually it's really tough. And then you get to a place when you're like, actually, I wasn't in a good place when I was spending time with you. And I felt like I went through that when I was younger, because you had more tolerance for that stuff. But these days, I mean, especially how vocal we are, we're going to let you know.
Exactly.
They're not beating around the bush in your 40s or however old they are.
Yeah, like even executive producer or not, we are going to tell you what we think of you. Because I remember it was really funny as well when Sarah Jessica Parker was on Jonathan Ross. When Jonathan Ross used to have a talk show on the BBC.
Did he get kicked off?
Well, he went to ITV for more money and then flopped, didn't he? That's another story. But I remember, like, he when Kim Cattrall was on, he was like, "Oh, is the bitch with the big nose giving you a problem?" But then when Sarah Jessica Parker came on the show, it was so awkward because you could just see that she was kind of
She'd
like,
obviously heard that.
yeah, and her face was just, and he was literally like, "So you and Kim, Jonathan Ross is like, a bull in a china shop, so like subtle is like a sledgehammer," and it was just so awkward to watch. And like Sarah Jessica Parker was like, "I know what you said about me, and I'm not gonna," and that is quite a nasty comment to make as well. To be honest, like he could have said that she was just a bitch. He didn't have to go for her appearance.
No.
So
I don't like that.
That was really, really mean.
And what I really like about her is she is someone that has really just owned her appearance. And because the thing is, she's not conventionally beautiful, is she?
Yeah,
but when you think about the show and the amazing outfits she's been in, she always looks absolutely spectacular. I've always loved her fashions. I know that she had that really famous stylist.
Patricia Field.
Patricia Field.
You say her name with respect.
You better say her name. Say my name.
You can exactly acting shady.
The writings on the wall is going to be throughout this entire.
It's the entire thread for this season. I think honestly, that's what we should have called the season. The writings on the wall.
Yeah, thou shalt listen to every episode.
Exactly.
But yeah, so she still looked great, and I'm glad she didn't do a nose, or like I think she might have changed that. Did she have like
she had a mole or some sort, didn't she? Yeah.
But like she's kept herself true to who she is, and I feel like I appreciate that, and I like that kind of sentiment that she's kind of portrayed. Like, look, this is me. I'm getting older, but look, I keep myself fit and healthy, and I don't pop my own babies out.
Exactly. She's very much a character actress, and that's been wonderful to see. And yeah, it's not conventional beauty, but then we don't like conventions. We don't want that Tyrannosaurus, remember? But anyway, so talking about reboots and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this tab. It auto saves, so don't worry, everybody. It's going to be okay. We don't need to keep on saving. Save as, rename, and all of that. Change the file extension. We don't have to do that anymore. Isn't that great? And we are going to move on to our feature presentation today.
Yes.
So we are talking today about Moesha.
Mo to the E to the Mo to the E to the. I'm not going to sing the whole thing.
Exactly. We were just having a little bop there, but So, for anyone growing up in the late 90s, one of the must-watch shows for teenagers and young adults at the time was Moesha. Classic American sitcom, Moesha starred R&B superstar Brandy Norwood as Moesha and followed the adventures of the family living in a suburb of Los Angeles. Moesha was far from light-hearted fare. Whilst it was really funny and entertaining, it also tackled like some serious subjects such as racism, sexuality, drugs, and bereavement. As one of our favourite shows in our teenage years, we knew, well, I say teenage years, we knew we had to talk about it in depth. So, today I'm so excited because this show recently has come back onto Netflix. Yeah. Sorry, I say back onto it. It's come onto Netflix, so we can finally watch it again. And it's just been really, there's been so much like through watching it that I wanted to discuss. And so I'm going to. So, Sunny, when did you first see Moesha and what was your first encounter with it?
Because when I was kind of doing a little bit of recapping and research, I realized this show is from '96.
Yes.
I was like, oh my goodness. So when I kind of go back into that era.
You were like 2 years old watching Teletubbies
exactly,
and America's Next Top Model.
Which I didn't realize was actually started in 2000. Didn't we talk about this?
Yeah, 2003.
Yeah, so then back in...
So you weren't even born when Moesha was on.
Yeah, sadly, I was. It was year 7 at school. And then I remember watching like Sister, Moesha. This is a time of Nickelodeon, so it was like Keenan and Kel, Rugrats, which I still am obsessed. They did a reboot of Rugrats.
Oh my god, really?
I know, and I saw a clip of it. It's all digital, and I'm like, no. But apparently, the same voice actors that did the original.
The original, okay.
And the writing with Rugrats was actually genius. It was so funny.
It's so advanced for its time. Like when you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh my god, when did that? Did they just infer that? What?
I learned a lot about Jewish history through the Rugrats.
It's true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh my god, Passover and all of these traditions. Anyway, digressing. But yeah, so it was like the other channels that I had Trouble, which is where so Moesha was on Nickelodeon, wasn't it? But then did it move? I think the Parkers, which was a spin-off from Moesha,
featuring Kim,
was on Trouble. And it was just that time when you come back from school and like all these shows were on, and it was like Clarissa Explains It All, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It was just such a great remember what was her name? Alex Mack, The Secret World of Alex Mack. She'd like turn into the T-1000 and melt down. I was like, that is the power I want so badly. What happened to that show actually?
I can't remember. Do you know what? Because I was blossoming into my 20s towards my 20s at that point. So I think I kind of fell away. I went to a different market.
The adult entertainment.
Exactly.
But yeah, so I remember watching it, coming back from school, and just loving the fact that it wasn't so like Sister and Clarissa and all these other shows. It was just a little bit more clean cut. But what they still did in Moesha was they had great representation of like a really nice, wholesome family. It was a black family, so it was so positive depiction.
Yes.
But they also dealt with some of those more tricky issues in terms of like teen pregnancies. People wanting to go out and party and have fun, but then still feeling like, look, we are still good citizens in terms of we go to school, and she was really clever in the show. She was always had really good grades, and that's kind of my early memories of Moesha. What about you?
Well, see, you were so lucky because you were blessed with Nickelodeon. Yes. So for us plebs down in the underworld, we had to wait for it to come on Channel 4 on the second window. So it used to be kind of a treat I used to associate with half-term, Easter break and summer holidays, because it used to come on like at 9:30 or 10:30 in the morning. So like there would always be this thing like where like in school holidays you wanted to sleep in and wake up late. Oh my goodness! But in our household that didn't happen. Brown households everywhere, you will know what I'm talking about. or certain kind of households where you just can't have those lie-ins because your parents are just so goddamn loud at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Start cleaning.
And you're like, it's not fair, it's my school holidays. So it used to be on at 9:30, and we'd see it kind of intermittently, and it was really very much a treat. But I used to love it. It was just so polished and well produced, and like you said, this kind of show, like we had like Clarissa, Sabrina, and all these other shows. But Moesha really was its own. It was very distinctive. Yeah, it was really distinctive, and there was just something like rewatching it now from this perspective as well. I didn't realize how well it was written. Like it moves forward really well. Like every line hits its mark.
Good.
The storylines are good. They converge well. It's very believable. And one other thing I realized, like. Which I forgot as a child. Like I always used to think there was like gaps in my memory. Like sometimes I've watched an episode and like, like 1 minute she'd be in the school gymnasium and then she'd be at home. And I'd be like, oh, I must have missed a scene in between. But I realized there was just like a cut there or an edit, where it just like, that music would come, the incidental music showing the change of location. And it just made me think like, the production values were really high. I mean, one of my big memories from it was the fashion. The fashion, of course, the fashion.
And the music as well, because if you think about it, so I didn't know Brandy as a singer at that point in time, because I think when we talked about The Boy Is Mine, I was like, I remember when I saw that music video, I was like, oh my God, that's Moesha. Yeah. Which I knew was Brandy, because obviously it would be at the beginning of the show, Brandy Norwood, as how she was kind of shown as an actress. And I just thought, wow, like, she is like, she's so like, I don't know, like a really interesting character that they've like fleshed out rather than being that conventional. I don't know, someone like in Clarissa Explains It All. They're all just too
basic.
They're really, there's no edge to them, and I just like the fact that she liked to party, still studied, and she had her boyfriend Q. Remember?
Yes, of course.
And her best friend Hakeem.
Hakeem
was Hakeem?
Oh no, so
the neighbor. Sorry, no,
Hakeem was the neighbor who used to come over for breakfast.
Deceased.
Yes, it's very sad, wasn't it?
Kim, her best friend,
Kim.
But oh my God, we need to go into the dramas with them too. And then Nisi.
Yes, Nisi as well.
And Frank was a dad, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And what was her mum's name again?
Was it D? So
D.
it was Denise, and I think it was D. And she was worked at the school, didn't she?
Yes, that's it. She was assistant principal, I think.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, I was always frustrated by Moesha's dad. He was always like such an authoritarian, and it was just a little bit like, oh, come on, like she's a trustworthy girl. But it kind of taught you, look at all these kind of, I think that what they were trying to do is help kind of educate families. Like, this is the challenges that you go through when you're raising your kids. And instead of you're listening to your parents, maybe you'll listen to your favorite show and kind of get some good, I don't know, role models through it. Because I felt like they helped you make decisions in tough situations, like, I don't know, in terms of taking drugs or, you know, all those sorts of things that you wouldn't typically expect to be on a children's TV show. They're helping you kind of think about what are the moral challenges in that. Exactly.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. She was a three-dimensional character, and a lot. It felt, you know, like we both grew up in households of all boys. You know, we've got brothers. But I think for teenage girls, like she felt like watching it now, I realize that even more. The depiction of a teenage girl, like it's so, especially of an African American teenage girl in that time, it was.
Great role model.
Yeah, nowhere to be seen, really. I mean, of course, we had Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yes,
but that was
the central female.
Yeah, and also not only that, like if you think of Ashley and Hillary,
it was great.
They were. I mean, they were totally different. It was a different kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, like you said, it was very three-dimensional. And then the kind of when those like things would happen, like, you know, for example, the drugs and what have you.
Yeah.
Like, for example, like, you know, in a program like Saved by the Bell, like, you know, when the drugs would happen, and Mr. Belding would just happen to turn up and be like, "Come on, kids, you know you can do better." And then, like, you know, they'd put the drugs away and then straight to credits. Whereas here, it really struck a note of reality, because it wasn't like someone was like, "Oh yeah, take the drugs." You know, it wasn't like presented as like caricature. There was a note of reality in there,
a real dilemma.
Yeah. And I imagine that, you know, anyone watching in America, I wonder, like, you know, if they going through high school, and like, because obviously we've got a fantasy version.
I know.
American high school is like that. Like, oh,
like
it's amazing. You just go to the cafeteria and wear like designer clothes and meet you at your locker and all of that. And I remember, like, you know, when I went to sixth form, and I got a locker in that school for the first time, and I used to think, yes, it's like in America, like I got a locker and all of that. It's not glamorous at all. It was just like, you know,
padlock,
chuck your bag. No, we didn't. We had like keys, because it was a very select school.
Oh wow.
But the thing was, some people had master keys, so you could like open locker. It was just like you go and like chuck your books in and stuff. And I used to think, no, like in high school, everyone's like, "Oh, I'll meet you at the locker," and then, you know, inside your locker you put pictures and stuff like that. We weren't allowed to do any of that. Like, you know. But I think that whole depiction, that whole world, was really well captured, and I really like kind of liked that aspect of it.
And she's actually such a brilliant actress as well, because I think I started to see her in a lot of other things as well. So I think she first started in a show called Thea, didn't she?
Yes.
And that's when she got picked up to do Moesha. And I remember at the time, years ago, when she was being interviewed about it, she was like, I remember hearing about this character, and I thought, I love the character, but the name, she's like, Moesha. She's like, what kind of name is that? And I just thought, yeah, that's true, actually. It is very it's not common here, is it?
Yeah.
We don't hear that name very often. But I just remember thinking to myself, oh my God, like, she's such a good actress, and the stuff she did on the side. Like, I'm also thinking of hilarious movies like I Know What You Did Last. I Still Know What You Did Last.
Was she in the sequel, or was she in the first one?
She was in the sequel.
Oh.
I remember when they were interviewing her about it, they're like, oh, so tell us about your role. She was like, well, guess what? I last a lot longer than most black people in horror movies. And she lived. Spoiler alert.
Do you know, I don't think I've watched the sequel. I've only seen the first, because do you know what it is? I think Scary Movie has ruined those films for me forever. I can watch Scary Movie, but I can't. The only one I can watch is Scream. I love the Scream series.
They're so good. I mean, it was in that kind of vein. It was just very kind of teen horror. But I was so obsessed with, like, I was obsessed with Brandy. I used to have like so many posters of her on my wall, and I had my tech folder.
Oh yeah,
my tech folder, my email address, everything. It was like, I was so obsessed with her. She was just such a multi-threat, like an actress.
Sunny Loves Brandy at Hotmail.
I think it had the underscores between.
Bit of separation.
That has definitely been shut down. It's such a shame. I've got so many good emails. Mainly pictures of Brandy.
Did Brandy's management company be like, yeah, you can't have that email, sorry, blocking it?
I used to get messages from people. I think I told you guys. I was like, I'm getting messages from people saying, "Oh my god, I love you, Brandy. I wish I could meet you one day." And I thought I used to print them off and bring them downstairs to Dad and say, "Look, I got a message from someone in Georgia saying that they love me." And my dad was like, "What is this? What are you doing?
Why are you wasting printer ink printing it out?"
I was like, "This is the internet, Dad. I can speak to people in Georgia who think I'm a celebrity."
Oh my god, I just love that you print them out and file them later
I
on,
was
like
so
Brandy fan mail, like, you know. You're the original Stan, you know, Eminem Stan.
God. Yeah, it was
Tea's gone cold and watering.
It was from my website. I need to dig that out. I'm going to find some screenshots for everyone.
That is so funny. So tell me, who was your favourite character and why was it Kimberly?
I did. You know, I loved Kimberly for so many different reasons. First, she was so outspoken. She was completely different to Moesha. She was a little less graceful, but she was one of those friends that we all want. You know, like life of the party, loud. But the other reason I loved her, she was an amazing singer as well.
Yes.
Remember, she'd occasionally sing, and there was one episode I've just remembered when she sang. Is it a Leanne Rhymes song or something?
I Can't Fight the Moonlight, was it? Or
No. I think it was a ballad, but
How Do I Live Without You?
maybe it was just
Because Leanne Rhymes only had those two songs.
You know what she did? You know what? That is such
No shade, but it's
That
true.
is such
Like, if you went into country music, those are the only two songs you know, Leanne Rhymes.
But I think that's when they kind of, at times, gave people to bring a little bit of themselves into the characters because Countess Vaughn is her name, isn't she? The actress. She is a phenomenal singer, like incredible. And I think there was a lot of rivalry between Brandy and Countess because of that. Because I think when I was watching like one of the clips, like just recapping on the show. No, actually, no. This is a clip from. Remember, MTV used to do those shows, Driven.
Yes.
Oh my god, I love those shows, and they would like profile different like famous singers. And in Brandy's, talking about her and her time on the show, and I think there was like this huge feud between the two. And Dee, this actress, I've forgotten her name now, she was talking about how Brandy and Kim were very much like, I want to be like, you know, the one that's like the main character. I always assumed that it was Brandy's show, to be honest. I never saw it as Kim's show. But I think there was still a rivalry from to be like, look, you know what, I'm still an important character. And that clearly came through in the audiences because, look, she wouldn't have got a spin-off. But I loved Kim. She's a great character, really fun, like, you know, great voice as well when you did get to hear her sing.
So interesting you say that, because as you just said that, you know what thought popped into my head? It is a bit like Sex and the City, where Carrie Bradshaw is the main character, but Samantha is the one who got the audience reaction. And you were so right, because Kimberly is so talented, and you know the way the singing, and also like her comic timing.
You're right.
And the way that she could level up, like she could do an emotional scene 1 minute, and then she could be funny the next minute, and she could be tender. The range that she showed, and you got this sense that like Brandy's an excellent actress, and not taking away from that, but I think that the actress who played Kimberly had so much more control over her acting, or a bit more experience behind her. And I think that was probably what caused the rivalry, because I think Brandy may have been threatened. And it also feeds into the whole boy is mine thing as well, doesn't it then? Because it makes you understand why that purported feud with Monica happened, because it was like someone similar in the horizon, and suddenly it's like that this person's threatening me. And especially, again, we forget that, because I think Brandy was like, Moesha was made when Brandy was like 15 to 20 years old. And that, again, formative years. And, that whole kind of thing where you're finding out who you are, and then especially to be on that stage, and then like at that time that was one of the like a tenet of pop culture. So it must have been a lot of pressure and a lot of, so you can see how these rivalries could easily flare up and be built, and like I said, there's no mobile phones or anything, and people if you're sitting in one room and they're sitting in the other room, and your little entourage is like, oh my god, that bitch is wearing this, oh my god, it builds up, and then suddenly.
But if we think back to the types of stupid, silly arguments we had at school with our friends at the time, it was never that deep. But the difference is these guys were on a huge platform, and they had a lot of adults probably fueling the fire because they thought, actually, this is really good press, or it's going to create a buzz. And this is the thing that's frustrating, because it just means that actually you create tensions with people that have to have a good working relationship. And I think I remember even seeing interviews of Countess Vaughn saying, actually, you know what, it wasn't that deep. Yes, I did call her the B word, but you know what, we all did. Like, it's just, we were teenagers, and and that's all it was. It wasn't anything that significant, but yeah, when you're teenagers, I suppose it's not really that deep.
It happens. And also, I think it was a different time in television, because I think now, if you start throwing that kind of shit around, you're immediately off the show. You'll get rewritten, you'll get written out, your contract will be, you can't behave unprofessionally. Whereas I think there was something to be said in the pre-internet age where you could be a diva, or you could get away with that kind of...
We would have been great back then.
We would have been amazing. Can you imagine? Like, I don't feel like filming today. Like, let's cancel the shoot and stuff. But now you can't, like, you have to deliver and you have to be on time. And, like, if you don't, there's like, there always has been so many people ready to take your place. But I think now, so in today's like world, it's so quick how quickly you can be replaced. And with someone who's of equal stature, or if not, of greater stature than you.
No, I agree. And that's why Kim was obviously given her own show on the Parkers. And I think it got to the time when they weren't getting on, obviously, but the show was probably at least 4 or 5 seasons in, and they were getting to a place where actually it's probably kind of run its course almost. Yeah. So it's probably, it needed something fresh and new, and then maybe the Parkers was just that. And I do remember watching a couple of seasons of it, but I never really got that into it, mainly because I was so obsessed with Brandy. I was like, oh, I don't really care. If she's not in it, I don't want to see it. And I actually found out that she appeared in one episode of the Parkers to kind of show her, support for the show, but I never saw it.
No, I do. Well, obviously us plebs down in the underworld, we didn't have Sky.
Trouble, you didn't have Trouble.
The Parkers, what's that? Honestly, we just knew of Moesha. There's a spin-off. No, I did see in my research there's a spin-off, and actually it's interesting how you talk about that kind of universe where like Moesha went over to that show, because then
it's like Marvel.
It's like Marvel. It's like the Marvel universe.
The superhero, they're all going to reunion again.
Because then there was so many other cameos. Like Usher did a cameo.
He did.
Genuine did a cameo. Don't forget Uncle Bernie Mac.
Bernie Mac. You know what? They had so many legendary black people that were like performers, singers, actors in the show coming through, and that was always the best part. Remember when they'd go to like a concert, something, there would be like someone performing,
and then bump into Usher in the back, and it'd be like, how the hell do you?
Cool.
And that I loved that kind of fantasy element to it, and like it's interesting because like a show like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air kind of pioneered that, where you had like Tyra and Naomi and all the top cream of black talent.
Even Donald Trump was in it.
Oh God, well Donald. Let's said about that.
Not
better.
The cream.
He was in Sex and the City. Sex and the City keeps coming up today.
And Home Alone.
And Home Alone, Home Alone 2. It's like, oh God, like But so in terms of like representation and stuff, why do you think shows like Moesha are so important?
So I think it's nice to get. So if you're not like the white and male, portrayed in like those sorts of characters are portrayed in a lot of shows, it's nice to feel like actually this is something that's representing me. Obviously I'm not a black female, but it was something different, and that's what
spoke to you.
Exactly. And there were things that were similarities in terms of maybe growing up with a family that were probably a little bit more, I don't know, traditional in terms of their maybe what they expect of their children, in terms of focus on study or going out and partying and stuff like that. So I just felt like that was quite a nice thing to relate to. And I think we need that, don't we? We want diversity, because actually how are we ever going to learn about another culture if we don't see enough representation?
And also I think what was really important about Moesha is it's one of the shows that showed black joy. Like yes, there were heavy subjects on there, but it was so nice to see, because normally when you watch like I do find, like, I want to be careful how I say this, but I think like sometimes when you watch shows which are predominantly black, there's always some sort of they bring the real world into it. And like if it's a documentary or it's like something like The Wire, for example, which did,
I really want to see that.
The Wire is excellent. Like it changed the way I watch television. But and I think the way that they brought, they gave the story so much dimension, and so like you felt like you're watching a documentary, even though it was a drama.
Right.
So I think shows like Moesha are equally as important, because we want it's a spectrum. There's not just one life that like for example, like that's something like a show like in the UK we have Keeping Up with the Kumars, or the Kumars at 42 or something, and it kind of shows this kind of stereotypical Asian family, overbearing.
Advertised on the radio. What is that about? Who is that?
Oh God, it was ages ago. It's like it's kind of like Meera Syal and Sanjeev Bhaskar, and it's basically this son.
The Kumars at 42.
The Kumars at 42. Sorry, not Keeping Up with the Kumars.
I was like
sorry.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Sorry, so I've just let it slip there. So my family are going to take over from the Kardashians. We're going to be the new big franchise.
I'm so excited.
My mum is the Kris Jenner, and so that makes me the Kim, I suppose. Yeah, my momager, exactly. So yeah, my sex tape should drop any day now with a cast of Moesha. Yeah, because we'll come to that in a bit. But yeah, it was really good to just have that positive depiction and joyful depiction, and also the humor as well was really, really nice because, like I said, like a Fresh Prince and Sister Sister, all these shows had this kind of elevated humor in common. Funny. Like, you know, when people would like take the cusses that they heard on the show, and like, you know when you're like cussing someone's mum and stuff, yeah, exactly, and like you'd hear it on the, you'd hear it from a film or a show, and it was just something. There was just something so really spicy.
To quote, yeah,
and it's kind of and I think the whole idea of like these shows speaking to us as like South Asians. You're right. There was those cultural similarities where we used to have banter and we used to have like silly talk, and I'm not saying that other cultures don't have that. But the banter that was here was like very, very specific. Yes. But it was also very universal.
Very relatable for us. And maybe other people did relate to it as well that were white and, different generations. But it's just, it made you feel like, oh, actually, I can relate in that way.
Because it always felt like the show went really quickly. And I always find that shows that I love or really enjoy seem to fly by really fast. Like, I'll start watching and then it's like an advert already. So what? I started watching it. And then like you go to the second part and then it's over and you're like, no, I can't wait another week for like, the next episode. It just goes crazy. But yeah.
One interesting thing that you just kind of reminded me of is how they tried not to go down that typical stereotypical route. And Frank was such a great character because he was even though he was frustrating because he was so overprotective sometimes, it made me feel, I remember at the time thinking, oh my god, just let her be free, she's such a good citizen, blah. But I always just think people need to be good citizens.
God, you had it bad for Brandy, let me tell you. Don't say anything to Brandy. Leave Brandy alone.
I would have done it. When she, I mean, we won't go into a lot of depth, but remember she had a tough time when she was in a car incident, someone did die, and I remember just thinking, goodness me, I was like, yeah, this ain't easy, is it? Because she got a lot of bad press after that, Brandy did. But let's not go. But what I was thinking of is when I think they were obviously struggling with ratings, so something happened and they started trying to change it up a little bit because Ray J started coming in a brother.
Yes.
And he ended up being Frank's illegitimate son.
Yes.
And there was lots of critique from the cast themselves saying this is not how Frank should be portrayed and depicted, because look, he's been such a solid guy who's had so many morals that have always come through in all of his kind of actions and every single being in his entire being. It just felt such a letdown, and I remember watching that at the time thinking, oh gosh, he ruined it. And that's when I think people start chasing ratings, and it was no longer the focus not being let's put out a really good show, let's just try and get viewers,
let's chase viewers, exactly. Because I was reading up and I saw that Dee actually left the show on account of that creative decision. And
we've both seen the same YouTube video.
Exactly. There's only a limited number. But it's so true, that whole, Frank was he was very, because the whole setup was very aspirational.
Yes.
It wasn't like a fact that like you were watching it and thinking, oh, it wasn't like Only Fools and Horses where you're like, oh, I hope to get out of it, honestly, because it's horrible, dingy flat in Peckham. It was really, really nice. And then, they moved to a house and there was affluence, and Frank was working hard, Dee worked hard.
Saturn dealership. I was like, what is a Saturn?
And it did feel like I don't know what the writers was, because also the other thing is that after season 6, the show was shelved because the ratings were declining, as you said. And I think, like you said, that people had such an emotional connection to the show. A storyline like that, the kind of wrong turn can really sever that relationship. So suddenly that show that you worshipped and loved, or when someone associated with it becomes problematic.
Yes.
And then you're like, for example, like with the Harry Potter series now, because of J.K. Rowling's transphobia, I can't really go to Harry Potter anymore like I used to. And I feel that's really, really sad. Because the other thing to point out as well is, like you said, Moesha is very realistic. She's three-dimensional. It's a really good depiction of an African-American teenage girl. Yeah. But it is also problematic as well. The way that Kim's weight is always brought up. And do you know how that was always a punchline?
I know, I saw that recently thinking, what? I was like, is this okay?
Yeah, and it just seemed that, sometimes it kind of veered into that territory where, I mean, that's of the time, so we can't really be too critical. But at the same time, it was very much like, someone's appearance or someone's, you know,
Low
physical
grade.
features or something, they would go to that, and it would sometimes be, you realize, actually, do you know what, this show was better than that. I didn't need to do
No,
that.
it
That's
didn't.
kind of Little Britain territory, where like, you know, you just go for the jugular. But but Moesha didn't need to do that. It had to,
It was
you know,
much cleverer.
polished. It had polish, and it had good production values, and you know, it didn't need to really kind of make fun of people's appearances and things like that. So yeah, that was a real shame. So how do you feel about a reboot of the show? I mean, do you think it would work in today's times?
You know what? I don't think. It'd be interesting to know how they're going to bring it back. It can't be the same premise because they're obviously adults now.
Yeah.
And it would need to be they need to completely shake it up. It needs to be profiling maybe her life as a mom or something. I don't know. I just don't want to see them try to
pick it up where they left, because the thing was, there was a big storyline that was unresolved, wasn't it? Because then, by season 6, Moesha's gone to college. I think she's sharing with Nisi.
Yes,
she's got room, and then there's a pregnancy test found at the end.
Oh, that's it.
And then no one knows,
runs
you know,
off, Miles runs away,
but we don't know whose pregnancy test it was, so maybe, I think you're right.
That could be a good starting, couldn't it?
It could be.
Her daughter's doing a pregnancy test.
But whose daughter was it? That's the thing.
That is true.
So I mean, I think you're so right. It would need to be Moesha in today's times. Like what? So for example, like again, going back to how's this turned into Sex and the City?
Oh wow, I love it.
But the way that like, you know, they're going to look at Carrie Bradshaw in today's times, like in the internet and podcasts and all that kind of thing. What would Moesha be doing in today's time? What would Kimberly be doing in today's time? What would Nisi be doing in today's times? You know, all of those factors. Like, what is Frank's retirement looking like?
Yeah.
Is he retired?
Is he retired? Yeah, exactly. Because remember, she'd have a diary as well. Remember, she'd always like, Dear Diary.
Oh my God.
You should be called Dear Diary.
Dear Diary. Oh my God. Were the roots of the Diary of His Own One Home in that?
Oh my
God!
goodness.
This is like therapy, isn't it? It's all coming out, and we're like, oh my God, that's where we got that from. Like, we thought it was original. It was like copywritten, so don't copy. Oh my God!
Oh my God, it's so funny. But yeah, no, I think I'd be curious to see it because I'm just like, oh, it'd be lovely to see the whole the cast that could come back.
Yeah.
Just see what they look like and how they, you know, bring these characters back to life, but. I can't see it being like a hit with the kids anymore.
Yeah,
it's not.
agreed.
I don't think it'd be that kind of vibe.
They don't have that kind of relationship with it. And in that case, like, I think the way Fresh Prince did it, you know, Fresh Prince recently did that reunion show.
I still haven't seen that.
Have you not seen it?
No.
Oh,
When did that come out?
It was a couple of weeks. It was earlier this year.
Damn it!
Although this year's been like 10 centuries. So
James
to be fair,
Avery is deceased as well, isn't he?
Yes,
Uncle
and
Phil. I loved Uncle Phil.
it was so emotional in that show.
That was hard.
But the way that they did it, because they knew that the magic of Fresh Prince they can't match it. You can't match the energy and, you know, the momentum of that time. But the way the reunion show did it, paid tribute to it really well.
Yeah.
So I wonder, but then I know.
Oh, wait a minute! Reunion episode. It wasn't an actual episode.
No, it wasn't a drama.
Oh, I did see the interviews. Yeah, no, I did because
You know,
didn't they bring on the
they
original mum back?
Original Aunt Viv.
Aunt Viv. That's it. Sorry,
and the two Vivs meet, and that was amazing.
Yes. Oh no, I did see that.
Because they are talking about a full-on reboot for this show. So I was watching The Real. You know
So you know what?
And
we should be on The Real.
We are The Real. We're like the
UK
South
version.
Asian, UK South Asian version of The Real. Honestly, because I was
really
because they assembled all the cast together, and I think it was is it Tia or Tamara Mowry who's on?
It's Tamara.
Tamara, and so it was really amazing to see Tamara and Brandy sitting side by side. It's like, oh my God, sister, Moesha sing side by side. It's amazing.
Aww.
And they were saying, like, you know, would you guys consider doing some sort, and like Brandy's often said that she would, and even as recently as January of 2021, there have been reports that, like, you know, there is something in the works and they're working it. So I really hope that, you know, however they pitch it right.
Yes.
Because these things, like, if a reboot goes wrong, it ruins the whole. It
just changes. It cheapens the legacy, and that's what I remember Jennifer Aniston saying years and years ago when she was talking about Friends reunions. She'd be like, "I think it would cheapen it if we did anything back again." Clearly, she was feeling pretty cheap. Didn't want to come back on board. They must have got a big check.
6 of you all had dinner. 2 of you were really cheap. But no, it's very, very true. And like, I think, they've got to really like preserve the legacy and like you said, I think today's kids as well just don't understand the magic of it, because they're like, you know, there's a great show on Netflix, Never Have I Ever, and what's the other one I was thinking of? I think that it's Never Have I Ever. But just like those shows, like they're used to binging 10 episodes in a go.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I said, this was like, I was like, Oliver Twist, please, sir, can we have some more? Like, watching it as a treat during school holidays and stuff.
I'd be curious to know, what do kids watch now? On I need to. I don't obviously nothing.
Sex Education.
And Nickelodeon.
Oh, well, to be honest, the kids are so forward. I would not be.
They probably have Netflix. So
well, they have Netflix, yeah. And I, like Tracy Beaker recently had some sort of reunion or something.
Still be on.
No,
right.
I think they revisited Tracy Beaker now. But I don't know, to be honest with you, because
do they have anything like this? Is what I'm thinking. That's
like
a bit
young adult,
yeah, exactly. YA, isn't it? Almost.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think a lot of the shows seem. I don't know. When I watch a show now, maybe it's just my perspective, but I just seem to think everything's too adult. I'm just like, oh my god, I can't believe they mentioned that, or they're talking about this, or they go to really dark places really quickly. And I was like, in Biker Grove, that was an entire season before we got to that bit. Like, it's like, especially when PJ and Duncan got shot with the paintball.
Oh my goodness, that scarred me. I was like, I never want to go paintballing.
Who was it? Amanda and the other girl. Those girls were just kind of like, you cheated on us, so we're going to shoot you with a paintball. And I was like, damn! Like, those bitches went there, and they didn't do any prison time or anything for it. I don't think. Like in the show, obviously. But
they should have in real life. Everyone was gutted.
Well, the only other thing I really want to talk about is Moesha very quickly is the fashion, because the fashion and the hairstyles. I love how watching it now that everything that they're kind of wearing has come back.
Yeah.
Like
it's all cycles.
It really is cycles, like Tyra and you. But it's just like I'm looking at like the lime greens and the purples and the oranges,
really bright colors,
and like the hairstyles as well. Like the hair is amazing. Yeah. And I remember like a lot of the black girls at school, like mimicking the looks and the hair, and I would
hair
just
gel down.
Yeah, it's slick.
I love that.
And I was like, what? And I now realise that how much of the show influenced that as well.
Culturally, that's a way, I suppose, in the same way as that was an influence for people's styling and clothes and stuff. Now it's just so much more immediate, isn't it? Because even though I had Nickelodeon, we didn't get Nickelodeon stuff in the UK when it was airing in the US. I'm sure there was a delay as well.
Oh, of course.
But now it's social media. So people probably just do one thing and it's like a global smash if someone's popular. Yeah,
one image can carry across like, 7 seas before it's even kind of reached kind of like, across the road. It is absolutely amazing. So I think any of these reboots really need to keep that in mind, that in today's world, it's like a super highway. It's like you need to really kind of go in running, and I think it's also like, quite as a writer, it must be really exciting as well to kind of bridge that gap between the heritage and today, and work out. Like, I mean, I'd love to be in one of those writers' rooms and see how they map it out and work out how they're going to bridge what happened there to today.
Well, that Frank's got another illegitimate child. I was like, please.
I know, that's such a shame. And like, it really kind of put a dampener on things, didn't it?
I don't know how they can rewrite that now. It's done.
Yeah.
You could just kill him off.
Oh dear. So I'm going to take it to the bridge now. So whilst the show may divide viewers nowadays, there is no denying Moesha is a significant show in the teenage show genre. Judging by the recent reception to the recent re-release on Netflix, Moesha is now finding a new audience, paving a way for that potential reboot. We certainly love to see shows which represent and try different things in commercial parameters, so if there is a reboot, sign us up.
Damn right.
But in the meantime, we're going to carry on binging the classic on Netflix.
They've only given us the first 2 seasons or the whole thing?
I think it was the first 2 seasons, so there's 6 seasons in total.
Okay, fine.
But to be honest, who's got the time to watch all 6 seasons? Like, we struggle with our daily.
Oh, God.
every time we see each other, we're like,
"Have you seen this?" I'm like,
no. So I put it on the list, and like the list now goes down 5 stories or whatever it is. Anyway, let's head over to the OnlyFans lounge and like chill out. So let's grab our glasses of water. Chink. And very nice. And so I just wanted to quickly, because I haven't humble bragged at all this episode. So do you remember when I went to New York on my holiday, and then I went to see Chicago the musical, and I saw Brandy? Do you remember?
So lucky. Were you expecting to see Brandy?
Well, no, you walked right into that one. Of course I didn't. So it was a lot. I would gone to go and see another show, and all the tickets were sold out. So I was like, I'll go run and see a ticket for Chicago. Yeah. And then I got there, and I remember I didn't know who it was, and then the announcer was like, "And playing the role of Roxy will be Brandy Brandy Norwood. And then like I got so excited, and there was a family sat next to me who was from Argentina, because I chatted with them in the interval, and I was like, Brandy Norwood, and they looked at me, they're like, Brandy, and they knew Brandy Norwood, and it was it was a moment when, like, you know, the UK and Argentina came together, put aside their differences.
It's the first time.
It was the first time, exactly, after a long time, and it was that kind of Brandy Norwood. But it made me think of Brandy the actress, because she is a competent actress, and it kind of relates to what we were talking about in the previous episode, where we were saying that, you know, certain talents. So, for example, I think it was Beyonce I was talking about in See Destiny's Child. There we go again. But Beyonce, the actress, she hasn't been that kind of reserve that she's got. Hasn't been tapped into, and I think Brandy's a good example of that, where Moesha was the perfect vehicle.
Yes,
but it was kind of like her acting school, wasn't it? She was learning on the job.
She definitely was learning. She was new to it.
She was new to it, and she got better and better. And then obviously she did all those teen movies, and now as she is, like, you know, she probably, like, I would love to see her do like a, you know, a serious film, like, you know, maybe an art house film or something. Yeah, or an HBO show, or something that takes her completely out of her comfort zone, or shows us Brandy as we've never seen her before. I mean, how exciting would that be?
No, I would, because I'm trying to think of the other films she's been in, and the other one I can think of is Cinderella.
I was just about to say, yeah. But again, that was like, you know, because also what's also coming through is how slick the marketing was around her.
Yes.
And I think like Brandy, Beyonce, all these amazing female megastars that we are blessed with and we love, all have this amazing kind of marketing strategy, don't they? Where they were presented as kind of girls next door, and then they suddenly glow up into this huge kind of like, they're very sexy, but they're very approachable. It's never cheap or vulgar. Yeah. And I think there's so much, I love kind of like looking into that world and like delving into like the marketing, and how, you know, the image makers like Matthew Uncle, or, you know,
Matthew
or Brandy's, what's Brandy's dad? Is it Jeremy Uncle?
Her dad, I've forgotten his name now, because both her parents were really involved in her career, and I think they were quite keen to have her be quite conservative. Yes, in terms of the way that she, because I think
their faith as well played a role.
Because it was a really big part of their life, and I think that's when all the drama kicked off. Because remember, she also had a baby outside of wedlock. Do you not remember this? These are all the dramas that were kicking off on TRL. I remember when she came on TRL, and it was so good, because it was thinking with Carson Daly, or someone was interviewing her, and she was like, "Oh, so it looks, we heard that you got married." And they were like, because she was already pregnant. Yeah. And she was like, yeah. And they were like, oh, so when did that happen? She was like, I'm going to keep that private. And I remember being such a naive dope. I was so obsessed with
you were holding up your tech folder as you watched.
Yeah, exactly. I just remember thinking, oh, of course. And she just doesn't want to share that, because that's a private thing. And
it's like, how dare you, Carson?
I was like, exactly. And I was like, what is he talking about? And then I realized, of course, she was covering up the fact that she hadn't been married and she had a kid out of wedlock. And that was not that's it, Sonia Norwood. That's the brand that her mum did not want it to have. She wanted her to be really wholesome and probably followed the kind of image that she had on Moesha in a way, in terms of being raised in a certain way. And I think that was just a little bit frustrating. And when you get, the thing is, you want to see people that are real as well. And I understand that obviously she's got a fan base and she has an image to uphold, but I feel like it frustrates me when people aren't themselves. Yes. And that's when I started to disconnect a little bit from that kind of marketing campaign. I was like, look, it's almost kind of more shameful now to kind of hide, because that did come out later down the line, that look, they were never married. It came out a few years later, maybe even a year later, she was never married to the guy. Yeah. And all those sorts of things, I just think it's not great. Yeah, exactly. You got played, which is terrible. Exactly. Oh, that's a shame. But anyway, I still love Brandy. But we still love her though, and like, you know, her new. I think nowadays, because it's so much, we're kind of more au fait with the system, and we know we kind of understand it a bit better. And I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see what she does next. Yes. So I think there's only one thing to say now, isn't there? The podcast is mine. No, it's mine. We hope you've enjoyed listening to The Podcast Is Mine. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast and share it with a friend. You can also follow us on all the socials. On Instagram, TikTok, Facebook and YouTube, we are The Podcast Is Mine. And on Twitter, we are Podcast Is Mine. Or you can email us at thepodcastismine@gmail.com. Oh, and one more thing, the podcast is mine.